People are really passionate about the type of charcoal that they use, and that is no more true than when it comes to lump charcoal. But is it really better? I've devised a series of tests to be able to test that out. And the last test is a blind taste test to see if I can tell the difference. If you're unfamiliar with the differences between the two kinds of charcoal, lump charcoal looks like real wood. It has pieces that look like boards or chunks of logs or limbs in that charcoal, and it can vary from bag to bag. When it comes to briquettes, they're made using lump pieces that are a little bit too small to be useful, or by charring sawdust, combining it all with some sort of binder, and then compressing it into the briquettes that we know and love. And the one really nice thing about charcoal briquettes is they're really consistent from bag to bag within the same brand. And that's a huge help to new grillers because it eliminates some of the variables and helps them to get consistent cooking right from the get-go. So this one goes to briquettes. Conversely, a lot of people say that those charcoal briquettes are being held together by some weird binders and chemicals, though a lot of them come out and say that they're 100% all natural. And if you look at all of my tests, charcoal briquettes put off a lot more smoke when they're first lit, and even sometimes when they're burning, than any of the lump charcoal out there. And that's a big reason why people feel that those charcoal briquettes may not be as natural as they say they are. So when it comes to clean smoke coming from the stuff that you're burning, lump wins hands down. Now let's look at the ash that's produced by each of the different kinds of charcoal. Now, Kamado users are big fans of lump because they say that it burns cleaner and with less ash, but I wanted to test that, so I took 6 different brands of charcoal briquettes and 7 different brands of lump charcoal, and I burned 500 grams of each one and then measured the ash that was left over. And if you look at the best charcoal briquettes, it had 14% of its original weight in ash, and the average for all of the lump charcoal was a little bit less. It was at 13%. And even if you take the worst lump charcoal, the one that produced the most ash, it still beat out 4 out of the 6 briquettes out there. So for the ash test, this one clearly goes to lump charcoal. If you found it useful that I've tested 13 different bags of charcoal, hit the subscribe button so you can stay up on future tests. But how easy is it to light the charcoal? Now, I've heard lots of people complain about lump charcoal, saying that it's difficult to light. So in my test, I took a chimney full of charcoal and I tested how long it would take to light with a single Weber starter cube. And the charcoal briquettes were really consistent. Almost every single brand was done and ready to go on the grill in about 12 minutes. But when it comes to the lump charcoal, 2 of the brands took twice as long or took an extra starter cube in order to be able to get it lit. So you'll see a lot of lump charcoal users using either giant tumbleweeds or multiple of these Weber lighter cubes in order to be able to get things going, just to make sure they can get a head start on that. And once it's lit, lump charcoal is way more likely to put off a bunch of sparks. So as far as lighting ease goes, this one goes to briquettes. The last couple tests shows that charcoal briquettes are both easier to light and faster to light. But which one is faster to get cooking? It's well known that charcoal briquettes put off a lot of white smoke when you first light them, and even when your chimney is ready to go and you dump it into your Weber kettle or whatever charcoal grill you're using, they put off a bunch more white smoke all over again, and it takes several minutes before it's ready to go and cook again. But when it comes to lump, once you start getting good, clean smoke, you're going to continue to get that good, clean smoke, and that means it goes a whole lot faster to be able to get it lit. I put an equal amount of lump and charcoal briquettes from Jealous Devil into 2 different Weber kettles, and I lit them with a single lighter cube. What I noticed is that even though Jealous Devil briquettes are really cleanly burning compared to the other briquettes, it still produced a lot more smoke than the lump did. And the lump still got up to temperature pretty quickly, and so it was ready to cook before the briquettes. So the test to see which one is ready to cook on faster goes to lump. And I've heard over and over that lump charcoal burns hotter for searing than charcoal briquettes, and that was one of the things I wanted to test. So I went out and bought an 8-inch square of 1/4-inch steel, and I put that on top of the fire so that way I could measure the temperature to see how hot this would get. And in one kettle, I added charcoal briquettes, and in the other one, I added lump charcoal. As far as this test goes, I wasn't sure how to measure the charcoal in a way that would be fair, either by weight or by volume, so I decided to do it both ways. In the first test, I took Jealous Devil briquettes and lump, and I got a full chimney of charcoal using that as a measuring cup. In the second test, I used trusty Kingsford Blue Bag and Cowboy Charcoal for the lump charcoal, and this time I weighed it out so they both had the same amount by weight. And the charcoal briquettes easily fit in my bowl, but when it came to the lump, I had to measure it into 2 different batches just to get the amount because the volume of it was so much higher. So I lit up both tests and I got different results with each one. A chimney of jealous devil lump brought the steel to a high temperature of 525 degrees Fahrenheit, and a chimney of jealous devil briquettes brought it up to 655 degrees. Conversely, in the weight test, the lump charcoal got up to an astounding 780 degrees Fahrenheit, and the Kingsford briquettes got up to 660 degrees Fahrenheit, which was more than hot enough to beat out the previous lump test. So why such a big difference between the 2 tests? Well, volume matters a lot, and not just because more charcoal allows you to get more heat and more fire underneath it, but the additional volume gets the fire closer to the cooking grate and closer to that metal plate. And since that lump charcoal took up a lot more room when I measured it by weight, it was almost touching the cooking grate, whereas the briquettes were still about an inch away. Now, this is going to get into the physics of it just a little bit, but if you take a given distance and then you double that distance, you're going to get a quarter as much heat as you would if it was the original distance. So that reduces the amount by quite a bit. So the closer that you can get for the fire to the food, then you get a lot hotter. And America's Test Kitchen did their own test that I didn't even see until after I had completed mine, and they said that briquettes got hotter than the lump charcoal did. And because of the differences in volume here, I'm gonna have to say that the searing temperature comes out at a tie. And America's Test Kitchen did another test where they had people see if they could tell the difference between lump charcoal and charcoal briquettes when it comes to flavor. And I jumped in and did the same test for myself. For my blind taste test, I lit up 2 different grills. One of them had Kingsford Blue Bag because I've cooked with it a lot. And in the other one, I used Fogo charcoal, which was the one that I could tell the difference of and got a little bit more flavor than all of the other lump charcoals that I tested. I cooked 2 hamburgers on each one and pulled them both when they reached 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I handed it over to Mrs. GTE. And what I asked her to do is to give me 3 plates and have 2 of them have pieces from one of the grills and 1 of them to have pieces from the other. And she was going to randomize it so that way I wouldn't know which plate was which and where they were or what they were cooked on. And Mrs. GTE didn't know which one was which either because I coded it based on the plate that I put it on when I gave it to her. And this is going to make the results more statistically significant because if I only have 2 and I know one is one and one is the other, then I've got a 50-50 chance of guessing which one it is correctly. And with a coin toss, I might be right half the time. But in this test, I had 3 different plates and I didn't know which one had 2 and which one had 1. So I had to correctly identify each of them. If I can get them all right, then there's probably a difference. So here is how that went. Okay, I think I know what it is. I think this one is one of them. And don't tell me, but I think these 2 are the same. I'm going to say that this one was the charcoal briquettes and these 2 were lump, which was on the crawfish plate.
You're right.
I was right. This one has a little bit less flavor. This one is pretty plain, and this one had a really mild smoke flavor. But the reality is, I don't think most people would be able to tell the difference between these 2. And if I had someone else cook it, I don't know that I would be able to do it as well as I did right here. So yes, I could totally tell the difference between the 2, and that was because the Fogo charcoal had a little bit more wood smoke flavor. But after the test was over, I put them off to the side, and the next day I pulled out those hamburger patties and I gave them a little smell, and the one that was cooked on the Fogo charcoal absolutely had a stronger flavor. You could still smell that smoke on it. And that's a big thing because people who go out and grill often get nose blind to the amount of smoke that's on their food. They might think that it's great and other people would say that it's too smoky. Just something to keep in mind as you're cooking. As far as the winners go for the taste test, neither of them tasted bad, so it really comes down to preference. I personally like a little bit of wood smoke, but I know other people don't and probably prefer the briquettes. So which one should you use? And really, it depends on your preferences. If you want something that's going to be really consistent from cook to cook, you absolutely should go with charcoal briquettes. And if you're big on flavor or are concerned that some of those things are not 100% natural in those charcoal briquettes, lump charcoal is the way to go. And if you haven't seen it, you should check out the videos where I tested the 7 different kinds of lump charcoal and the 6 different kinds of charcoal briquettes to see which one is best.